She shoved me into the lake, hard, fully dressed. No warning. No joke. Just hands on my back and sudden cold, pulling me under. I came up gasping, choking on water and panic. My legs scraped the rocks. My chest seized. And above me, I heard laughter. "Don't be so dramatic," my older sister smirked, arms crossed, perfectly dry on the dock. My parents stood a few feet behind her, silent, just watching. "My name is Rowan, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever nearly drowned while the people who were supposed to protect you just watched?" It was our family reunion. Lakeside, as always. Matching t-shirts, plastic chairs, too much potato salad. And the same hierarchy as always. Sophie, the star. Me, the shadow. I had arrived late that morning, straight from work. Tired but trying. Trying to belong. Trying to matter. Sophie greeted me with a forced hug and a whisper. "Don't embarrass us this year." I smiled, bit my tongue, took my seat, played along. But when the cameras came out, when the cousins lined up for dockside photos, she pushed me. With force, with spite, with intent. And the splash silenced everything. Except her laughter. Except my gasping. Except my father's quiet sigh like I'd caused this somehow. I climbed out alone. Dripping. Humiliated. My lungs still catching up. Nobody offered a towel. Nobody asked if I was okay. And in that moment, standing there soaked and shaking while they smiled for another photo, something inside me broke. Or maybe clicked. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked up straight at Sophie and smiled. Because I knew something she didn't. Mom and Dad had made me the joint custodian of the college fund last year, the one they'd been building for Sophie's precious son. And 2 weeks later, the account read $0. And my seat at the reunion table? Permanently empty. But oh, that was just the beginning. They didn't notice at first. The college fund was buried in a joint account labeled under my name and Dad's for tax purposes, he once said, because I had the cleanest credit in the family. They trusted me. Because I had always played the quiet one. The responsible one. The shadow behind Sophie's spotlight. But they didn't realize shadows watch everything. And remember everything. 2 weeks after the lake incident, I transferred the full $128,900 into a private trust. Legally. Silently. With the click of a button and the printout of a notarized form they forgot they signed last year. They were still sending Sophie's son campus tour flyers. Still bragging to neighbors about his full ride to a school that didn't exist yet. Still posting family photos from that day at the lake. The one where I almost drowned. I let them live in the lie a little longer. I let Sophie send me a sarcastic, "hope you've dried off" text. I let my mother ignore me in the group chat. I let my father share another post about family loyalty. Then the email came. From the university's financial office. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Harland, your final tuition deposit has failed due to insufficient funds." Boom. That same afternoon, my phone lit up. Dad, 7 missed calls. Mom, 3 voicemails. Sophie, 13 text messages. I didn't pick up. I was sitting on a flight. One way. Window seat. First class. Destination. Somewhere warm. Where no one knew my name. Paid in full by a consulting bonus I gave myself for years of unpaid emotional labor. Because here's what they forgot while crowning Sophie. I was the one who filed their taxes. I was the one who handled Grandma's estate when they didn't have time. I was the one they leaned on when the power got shut off that summer. I was invisible until I wasn't. Now Sophie's son was staring at a future without college. Dad was panicking over a paper trail. And Mom? Mom had to explain to the family why the ungrateful daughter suddenly disappeared with the only parachute they ever had. But I didn't disappear. I evolved. And this wasn't revenge. This was redistribution. The lake wasn't deep enough to drown me. But the silence that followed, that's what set me free. By the 3rd day, the panic turned to pressure. My phone buzzed nonstop. Mom. Rowan. This isn't funny. Where is the money? Dad. You need to call me. There are legal consequences if you did something stupid. Sophie. Wow. You're really going to ruin his future because of one joke. One joke. That's what she called it. The moment she shoved me into freezing water, laughed as I gasped for air, and walked away while I pulled myself out in silence. That was a joke. But apparently financial ruin? Now we're serious. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat by the infinity pool at my resort in St. Lucia, laptop open, sandals off, finalizing the purchase of a villa I'd been eyeing for years. $128,900? A fraction of what I'd earned on the side from consulting, from investments, from building something in secret while they crowned Sophie the queen. The college fund was just symbolic. I didn't need the money. But I needed the message. That I wasn't invisible. That I was done playing the good girl who holds everyone else's lives together while they laugh at hers unraveling. They underestimated me. Sophie always did. She was the golden child, the one who scraped by on charm, weaponized apologies, and blamed everyone else when her world cracked. And me? I was the girl in the shadows with the receipts. The one who filed the paperwork. The one who read the fine print. I still remember when Mom told me I was too sensitive. When Dad said, "Just let it go. Sophie's going through a lot." But somehow, I was always the one expected to carry it. So I did. Until now. Now, Sophie's son was scrambling for a community college that offered last-minute enrollment. Dad was calling financial advisors he hadn't spoken to in a decade. Mom was asking God how I became so cold. They still didn't see it. I wasn't cold. I was done. Because when you spend your life gasping for air while the people who raised you tell you to stop making waves, eventually you learn how to swim in silence. And when you do, you learn how to drag entire legacies underwater without making a sound. By the end of the week, the group chat exploded. First, Sophie. You're punishing my son for something I did. You're a monster, Rowan. He didn't push you into that lake. Then Mom jumped in. We trusted you. You've always been responsible. This is betrayal, and it's beneath you. And finally, Dad, you've embarrassed this family. When you're ready to act like an adult, let us know. I stared at the screen, watching the same people who once begged for my help now throwing words like darts. Betrayal. Monster. Embarrassment. They were finally talking to me, but not because they loved me, because they needed what I had. Funny how their definition of family only works when you're useful. And suddenly, the pressure shifted. Their tone changed. Because 2 hours later, a new message came through. Rowan, we're sorry. Mom. Then another. Maybe we haven't always treated you fairly. Dad. And Sophie? Fine. I was being a brat. You win. Can you please fix this now? I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because I'd won. But this wasn't about winning. This was about liberation. Because for the first time, I wasn't just reacting to their cruelty. I was choosing distance. I was creating a life that didn't need their approval, their gaslighting, or their guilt. I left the group chat. Not with a fight. Just a quiet click. Gone. Then I emailed the bank. Transfer remaining funds into the private foundation account. Label, Education Equity. I didn't take their money. I reassigned it. Now, Sophie's son wouldn't be attending the private university with marble dorms and latte machines. But 3 other girls, first-gen students from low-income families, would. That's what they didn't see coming. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. About redistribution. About making sure that my suffering turned into someone else's opportunity. I sat alone that night on the villa terrace, glass of wine in hand, barefoot in the warm air, and whispered one thing to myself. You'll never be a ghost in your own life again. Because they tried to drown me in front of everyone. And now, they were the ones gasping for breath. 2 weeks passed. No calls. No messages. Just silence. But not peaceful silence. The kind that lingers after a storm, heavy, awkward, desperate. Then a letter arrived. Handwritten. Cream-colored stationery. No return address, but I knew that handwriting. Sophie. It was 3 pages long, but the message was short. You proved your point. I was horrible to you. But you went too far. You've ruined everything. My son is devastated. Mom won't stop crying. Dad won't leave his study. Is this what you wanted? No, Sophie. What I wanted was to matter. What I wanted was to be protected. What I wanted, on that dock, gasping, humiliated, was for someone to say, that wasn't okay. But they didn't. So, instead of waiting for someone to pull me out of the water, I learned how to walk on it. The truth is, I never needed to take everything from them. I only needed to take myself back.
My time.
My labor. My loyalty. My silence. And now that it was gone, their world unraveled, not because I destroyed it, but because they never built it to last without me. I thought about writing back, explaining that Sophie's son was a good kid, that I wasn't trying to hurt him, that I'd already arranged a full scholarship for him at a nearby in-state school under an anonymous grant. But then I remembered. When I was 16 and sobbing after Sophie got me grounded for something she did, Mom said, "You're stronger than her. Let it go." They always told me to let it go.
So I did.
I let go of the approval. I let go of the guilt. I let go of the version of me that thought survival meant swallowing pain so others could stay comfortable. Now I live in a home I chose. Sleep in a bed where I'm never one apology short of belonging. Wake up in peace, not performance. And when I look in the mirror, I don't see the girl they pushed. I see the woman who learned how to stand in deep water and rise. By month's end, the ripple effects reached beyond just Sophie and my parents. Relatives started calling. Aunt Marla,
Cousin Deshawn,
even Grandma's sister from Atlanta. All of them suddenly curious about what happened at the lake. It wasn't just whispers anymore. Apparently, someone had posted the reunion video online. The part where Sophie shoved me. The part where I disappeared under the surface. The part where no one moved. Even without the splash audio, it was damning. No background music, just frozen smiles, a camera held steady, and me struggling in the water while everyone just watched. The comments flooded in. That's abuse. Why didn't anyone help her? This is what generational bullying looks like. It went viral, not TikTok viral, but family viral. Group texts, church prayer circles, whispered regrets. And then, the final twist. A local reporter picked it up. Lake incident raises questions about family dynamics and adult bullying. They reached out to me for comment. I said no, not because I was scared, but because I didn't need the microphone anymore. The story had already told itself. I watched from my kitchen in Bali, barefoot, coffee in hand, as my name buzzed through Facebook threads like a ghost they thought they'd buried. But I wasn't haunting them. I was healing. Because healing doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like being unavailable. No holiday invitations. No birthday messages. No return to the table where I was served humiliation on paper plates. And they noticed. Sophie sent one last message.
He got the scholarship.
I know it was you. Why didn't you tell me? Because, Sophie,
I didn't do it for you.
I did it so a boy could go to school without carrying your cruelty on his back. So he could unlearn entitlement and maybe one day teach empathy. I did it because someone has to break the cycle. And it sure as hell won't be the ones still passing the blame around the dinner table like gravy. You see, when they pushed me into that lake, they thought I'd sink. Instead, I became the tide. They stopped calling, stopped writing, stopped trying. And I knew what that meant. They had finally accepted it. I was gone. Not in anger, not in hiding, but in evolution. I didn't just walk away from that family dynamic. I outgrew it. Back home, they tried to spin it their way. Said I needed time. Said I was always sensitive. Said I wasn't the same after the lake. They were right about one thing. I wasn't the same. That lake didn't drown me. It baptized me. In fire. In grief. In clarity. Because when you nearly die in front of people who claim they love you, and they don't even move, you stop asking for a place in their boat. You build your own damn island. And mine flourished. I launched a mental wellness grant for trauma survivors. Bought a second villa in Cape Town. Started journaling again, not to remember the past, but to release it. Then one evening, a letter arrived from a college email address I didn't recognize. It was Sophie's son. Hi, Aunt Rowan. I just wanted to say thank you. I don't know how, but I know it was you. Mom is still angry, but I'm not. I'm going to do better. I hope I see you again someday. I stared at those words, heart still, not because they healed the wound, but because they planted something new.
I didn't reply.
Not yet. He needed space to grow. Just like I did. Because real cycles don't break when someone says sorry. They break when someone does better. And maybe he would. Maybe one day I'll meet him again. Not as the forgotten aunt, but as the woman who proved silence is not weakness. And absence is sometimes the loudest boundary of all. Because I wasn't missing. I was becoming. They stopped calling. Stopped writing. Stopped trying. And I knew what that meant. They had finally accepted it. I was gone. Not in anger. Not in hiding. But in evolution. I didn't just walk away from that family dynamic. I outgrew it. Back home, they tried to spin it their way. Said I needed time. Said I was always sensitive. Said I wasn't the same after the lake. They were right about one thing. I wasn't the same. That lake didn't drown me. It baptized me. In fire. In grief. In clarity. Because when you nearly die in front of people who claim they love you, and they don't even move, you stop asking for a place in their boat. You build your own damn island. And mine flourished. I launched a mental wellness grant for trauma survivors. Bought a second villa in Cape Town. Started journaling again, not to remember the past, but to release it. Then one evening, a letter arrived from a college email address I didn't recognize. It was Sophie's son. Hi, Aunt Rowan. I just wanted to say thank you. I don't know how, but I know it was you. Mom is still angry, but I'm not. I'm going to do better. I hope I see you again someday. I stared at those words, heart still, not because they healed the wound, but because they planted something new.
I didn't reply.
Not yet. He needed space to grow. Just like I did. Because real cycles don't break when someone says sorry. They break when someone does better. And maybe he would. Maybe one day I'll meet him again. Not as the forgotten aunt, but as the woman who proved silence is not weakness. And absence is sometimes the loudest boundary of all. Because I wasn't missing. I was becoming.